Here we go.
Yes, we are back. We are back with Brother Metamorphosis, Neil Frazier, the Cocoon Experience, the Metamorphosis of America. I'm going to put that banner back up for a second so they get the visual. Are you wet your whistle?
Yeah, that's a good banner, man. That's actually the spirit of what's going on in today's world. Because as you look at the situation and see what's actually going on, then now we know that all of the things that we suspected are now coming into being manifested. And so every time we try to deal with this from a rational perspective, the rationality goes out of the window. So today, brother, I just want to greet you, man. You know, Mondays is the powerhouse day, get my week kicked off and share, you know, some of the wisdom and knowledge that we have and talk to people about what we can do to overcome these systemic issues that continue to confront our people. And today, I want to greet everybody under the sound of my voice as well. But today, the reason why I came up with this topic, and by the way, Lance, that was a great description you wrote, because I was just thinking to myself last night, you know, it can't be that the butterfly comes out just in one manifestation. It has to be at least two manifestations because of the law of polarity. So in my mind, and we'll go into it as we go into the topic today, but in my mind, we're still stuck in the third phase of a four-phase process that nature has established. And of course, you know, we always believe that nature is our greatest teacher. And this is where we get the majority, if not most, of the concepts that we talk about. So again, the Cocoon Experience and the Metamorphosis of America, which we can see happening right before our eyes. And excuse me, got a little scratchy throat there. But this is so very, very important because we can see this playing out right before our eyes. And we're going to use nature as our guideline, as always, as we go through this process. But we're going to talk about the spiritual significance of metamorphosis, which metamorphosis, of course, means the transformation of a living organism from one state of existence to another, either by natural or supernatural means. But we know that there is a change that takes place. The word meta, which means transformation or change, and then morphosis, which means into, okay, or forming something. And we're going to talk about today the metamorphosis of America and the four stages that nature shows us through the Cocoon Experience. We're going to talk about transformation. We're going to talk about turbulence. We're going to talk about transference, and then we're going to talk about release. So, as always, I'm going to start out with a couple of scripts. I think this works out. Not thanks. I know this works out very well from a couple of people that I've spoken with. Is that we can't get past the fact. Well, there's no need to get past the fact that the Bible was translated from the experiences of our people, even though the narratives are written in a different way. The same concept, they were able to transfer. You know, when you look down through the etymology, the linguistic etymology of words, you can see this, that the original concept we're still able to capture through the scripts, because if you try to change the spiritual aspect of it, you can't, because this is where our people actually pick up what's going on in the etheric world from what they see that's written down. Because it doesn't matter, even if you, and I always go back to this reference with the living fire in our people before they could read and write. And so that's how they were taught. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover two very important prophecies that was given about what is being manifested today in this metamorphosis of America. Because too many times we're not looking at this from the perspective that this has already been spoken about. And so when, I like to say, if somebody tell you something the first time and show you who they are, believe it. But instead of one time, this has been shown to us. I don't think I can even count how many times, but we'll go through the history today. So buckle in, and we'll go through the history, and we'll look at the reality of what our people are facing.
Yes.
So Lance, were you able to get
Yes, I have
the
them.
picture? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, I
okay.
have them.
So if you could put the one with our people with the dog going at this, I believe this young guy was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And
Let me
then
I'm uploading from the computer now. I just snatched them. Give me
okay.
1
Yeah, no
second, brother.
problem. I'll get started here. So I'm going to read a couple of scripts first to describe what the prophecy is concerning what we are going through today as a people, and also the source of what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Isaiah 47:11. I'm sorry, 47:12. Stand now with your enchantments and with the multitudes of your sorceries, wherein you have labored from your youth 500 years. And this is talking about America. You are wearied in the multitude of your counsels. So let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save you from these things that shall come upon you. Behold, they will be as stubble in the fire, which will burn them, and they shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. And so shall they be unto you whom you have labored, even your merchants from your youth, 500 years. They will wander every one to his quarter, and none shall save you. Now, the picture I have up there, the reason I have this picture up here, before we go into the next script, and then we're going to go into this. The reason why I have this picture here is because we can clearly see between this picture and the picture we're going to show you from the protests on April 5th of this year. We're going to show you the contrast, and then we're going to explain to you how, what part this plays in the metamorphosis of America and the Cocoon experience. Because as I said, we're still stuck in the third phase of this, because if you look at the situation the way it is today, we have not progressed socially like nature teaches us, where you go from the egg, the larva, the pupa, and the butterfly. We have not left out of that cocoon. Okay, America has not. In fact, it's almost like a reverse metamorphosis, because we're going back. So I want to read this next script, because certainly America fits the description more than any other place on this planet today of ancient Babylon. So this is Revelations 18:9 through 11. And the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her, meaning America, will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city is fallen. For in 1 hour your judgment has come, and the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. And I'll add, due to tariffs. Revelations 14:8. And another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now, one of the things that will give us proof of this is, let's take a good look at this picture. And one of the reasons we talk about this is because we know, and our people finally realized, that we were the bait. Okay. You know how we joke all the time, Lance, is that a fish that keep their mouth closed don't get caught.
Right.
So our people didn't open our mouth on this. We sat back, and because we know this history. Okay. Whenever we went out and protested for not just civil rights, which they classified it as civil rights to fit into their constitutional law, which is okay. But we're talking human rights. We're talking Article 19, which you have the God-given right to express how you feel, not just verbally, okay, but also when people are forcefully taking away your rights, then you have no choice but to stand up. So this is what our people faced. This is what the reality, no matter how many books you want to take it out of, no matter how you, because what's going to happen is, so when you take down or destroy or defund the Department of Education, then the states, okay, and we're going to talk about the 3 states that actually produce the books that our children will be taught from. They are the most, have some of the most systemic racial ideologies that exist. And those states are Texas, Florida, and California. So we know that when the states already are in control of what's written and put. in the books that our children use. Okay, so this is just some kind of play in order to take more money. Okay, that's all it is. It has nothing to do with wanting children to be educated about real history. And we can look back throughout history and see whenever the power was taken away from the people, then it was just a matter of time before that civilization and culture collapsed. And this is what we're seeing in America today. So our people have always faced this. And for somebody to say, for your oppressors to tell you to go out and protest for them is like someone telling the slave to go go out and give some type of positive spin on why they should stay on the plantations and work as sharecroppers. Okay, which is absolutely insane. So we want to deal with CRT before we move from this picture real quick, because we want to talk about, again, we have to talk about real American history, because if we don't, then a lot of the things that are happening now to our people will go back into this emotional state where the greatest weapon we have is our cocoon experience here in America. And I often say, when you go through a metamorphosis, it's chaos. Okay, all of the things you've been hiding, all of the things you've been doing in the dark, all of the things that are planned, that are attached to some type of evil plan that we know you have, is going to be exposed. And that is the great thing about the spiritual aspect of metamorphosis. Okay, so when we talk about CRT and why the history of racism is kept out of American history books, we'll take one particular aspect of the American experience, and then we'll talk about how that translates into what we are discussing today. Okay, so let's talk about this Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, and actually, it's not the Pledge of Allegiance. It's the, I don't know why I'm drawing a brain fart on this, but when we do it was Francis Scott Key. Okay, that actually it celebrates the murder of enslaved people. Okay, and the Star Spangled Banner. Okay, so what happened was, most people don't know this history. I know it because I've been to the museums in Baltimore. But 3 weeks before Francis Scott Key, an avowed racist, saw the bombing of Fort McHenry in Baltimore, he was in Washington, D.C., watching a group of Black soldiers called the Colonial Marines, a group of escaped Black men that fought with the British in the War of 1812. The Black Colonial Marines and the British drove the Americans back to Washington, D.C., and set the White House on fire. 3 weeks later, he is seen at the Baltimore Harbor watching the bombing of Fort McHenry. And he then pens the poem that will become America's national anthem. Okay, and let's not forget this, because this is very important, because what people don't know is you have an avowed racist, or what you call a anti-federalist, who actually is the author of what we now know as our America's national anthem. So you see, for anyone to deny the foundation and the roots and the germination and manifestation of America is a liar. And I call you a liar in your face. Okay. So we look at the end of the third verse, which reads, "There's no refuge could save the hireling and the slave from the terror of flight and the gloom of the grave." So what they're saying is the runaway slaves who was running the hell away from those plantations and that brutal the brutality and the lynching and all of the things, the buck breaking and the breeding of our women and all of these things that were going on and the lash of the whip. He had the nerve to say that nothing will save the hireling and the slave from the terror of flight and the gloom of the grave. And so, and then you go and you take down Harriet Tubman. You see where you got to make this connection. That's why I know that the Luciferians that are behind the scene, they're much smarter than the people that these people are following. Okay, they are the ones that are grafting this. And Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder can see this. And thankfully, our people now with our open pineal gland can see this. But yeah, so whenever you quote the national anthem, that's what you're giving homage to. And that's one of the sad things too, and we talk about this, is that our people regurgitate things that they don't know the origin of it. But, be that as it may, this is the way we were indoctrinated and miseducated. So Black people have always been under the threat of terrorism, and yet are forced to stand and recite this national anthem and to sing it. As crazy as that is, that's why you have Black people protesting this. Because, you can't just look at history one way without looking at the spiritual aspect as well. And again, that's why we say nature is our greatest teacher, and how we know that these people can only see beyond 90 degrees. Okay. Now, let's go and okay, so Lance, can you show the other picture of the protest on April 5th? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about something before we go into U.S. history, because this is now, Lance, you were talking about in your description the two different butterflies, right?
Yes.
Just because, and it amazes me a lot of times, you get this, we get the same revelations and inspirations, but a lot of times you're way ahead of me. And so, but when I come and I look at it, and a lot of stuff I've written over the years, it's amazing that you actually see that. It's almost like I'm writing it myself.
We're synchronized, brother. We're on the same mission.
Yes, because every time I read your description, I'm like, how did this guy know this, man? You like in my brain or something? But,
you have powerful thoughts. It's like a
man,
that comes all the way out here on the other side of the world.
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah, but you know what
though? That's what projection is.
Yeah, but my mind is so clear. Remember, continuous nature and mountain living.
Yeah,
I'm hearing crickets right now. There's no loud noise. I'm quiet. I'm in nature. So when I don't have to even force the thought. Just read what you say in the title, and I already knew. And I already knew what to do for the banner, the words.
That's right.
I'm good, man. I'm saying, I'm not saying I'm good like I'm bad. I'm good. I'm saying I'm good because I'm happy and centered, and that's how this flows.
Yes, and that, man, it's great, because this picture right here says it all. Okay, and as we were saying, when you can't contrast this to the picture we showed earlier, where you got this big ass German Shepherd biting on the side of a 15-year-old, and in the background, people got water hoses and doing all of this. And then you butterfly, and you look at this right here, and you say, well, where are the German shepherds? Where are the water hoses? Where are well, you can say rubber bullets all you want, but they were shooting live ammunition at our people. Okay. I don't care if they were children, men, or women. Okay. So you look at this and you say, okay, that's a major contrast to what the experience of Black people have been in this country. And as I said earlier, for the oppressor to ask the oppressed to support you now that the Luciferians have turned their sight on you, that's insane. No one spoke up for us when we had to go through this. No one. Okay, so let's look at U.S. history a little bit so we can remind people of the truth, because we're entering into a phase where there are going to be a lot of lies. There's going to be a lot of lies told. Okay, so we're going to deal with this right now, and then we're going to come back to what, to this right here. So the history of the U.S. is written down in black and white, and it has always been about Black people and how to control us. Even when they were organizing this, I guess they call it a protest, looked like a march. Because when we saw a real protest on January 6th, it was totally different. And here again, we have two manifestations, really a Pan-American war. Okay, or a Pan-European war, whatever you want to call it. But every colony had a convention to discuss issues pertaining to the colonies and the future of the Black slaves, just like we have today. Folks closing things that pertain to Black history, erasing information out of history books or institutions where this information is stored. So that's why it's important for us to write our history down. Okay. So Patrick Henry brought the fact that there are 236,000 slaves in Virginia and very few in the northern states. And he was very concerned about this. He said, so what if they don't want to remain as slaves anymore? We are in trouble if they decide to revolt. And under the new Constitution,
There are
only
some people in this world.
Congress can arm the militia. So they've always had, throughout their metamorphosis and their cocoon experience, they've always had this fear. Because certainly, if I treated you and your family and your friends a certain kind of way and had you in a subhuman condition, and then all of a sudden the tables are flipped, and we have laws preventing this anymore, and now you still do it, but you can't do it in mass like you do. Think about the ramifications of that. The ramifications of that. Think about that. And they were very concerned about that. They have this same concern today. But as you can see, when you take the modern day Ku Klux Klan and race soldiers and they go to a Black community, you find out what the real deal is. So no one came out against the people that went and knew our children was in school to frighten them. Okay, so as long as this element remains in the cocoon experience and the metamorphosis of America, you can march all day long. That ain't going to change anything. James Madison responded don't worry about that. There is no plan to emancipate slaves. So Patrick Henry said, what if they fight in the army? What if we have to go to war? Is that going to make them free? If we have to go to war, they can be armed under the Second Amendment. And in 1862, slave owners were paid reparations. 1 million for loss of property in reparations, and it's $25 million in today's world. The slave owners was paid that. In 19th century U.S., between 1619 and 1808, 400,000 Africans were brought to the U.S. as slaves, and at this time, this was only 4% of the entire Atlantic slave trade, okay? But by 1860, the United States had the largest enslaved population in the history of the world, 4 million. So again, until until you deal with your original sin, okay, instead of always trying to keep your thumb and neck on Black people, none of this matters at all. And this is what they don't get because they don't see the spiritual aspect of this. They may see some of they're starting to see some of the psychological ploys that are being used against Black people. I hear some of them saying that they see now what's going on, which is, which will help push them further in their cocoon experience towards the true manifestation of a butterfly from a caterpillar, which is your lower consciousness, which you vibrate on, to your higher consciousness, where Black folks are. So this is why we continue to see this. They haven't even really, they have never really, this is why I don't listen to them anymore about religion. They have never really repented, okay? That is, so just that fact alone will not allow you to do and say the things that you say you believe in spiritually, okay? That doesn't even make sense when you think about it. And I'm so happy that our people are starting now. It's not like I love the scripts. I'm just telling you that you cannot allow other people to define it. Because what it means to you means something totally different to them. You may not want to accept that, but that's the way it is. So if you want to ignore real history, go ahead. That's up to you. So by 1836, 50% of U.S. wealth was produced by slaves picking cotton. I'm going to read that again because these people are going crazy. By 1836, 50%, I didn't stutter, of U.S. wealth was produced by slaves picking cotton. And by 1850, slaves accounted for, get this, 1/5 of all U.S. wealth picking cotton. And in 1860, more millionaires, white millionaires per capita, lived in the Mississippi Valley than anywhere else in the U.S. And see, this is why you know that at the core of Luciferians is this wicked hatred. I don't even know what to call it. But everywhere that our people produce their greatest wealth, they turned around and drove our people in the ground, because Mississippi has the poorest population of Black people in the U.S. There may be a couple of these southern states that are comparable, but this happened too in Haiti. And this is deliberate. That's why we know when something happens twice, lightning don't strike twice in the same. This is deliberate. So you have never repented from these original sins. And this is why I call it a crimogenic society, like Dr. Amos Wilson was right. If it were an independent nation, the South would have been the fourth richest nation in the world in 1860, simply because of slaves. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, And on January 31st in 1865, ratification barely passed by 3 votes. So remember now, these people talking about, well, yeah, because they're trying to rewrite the narratives. Well, it wasn't fought over slavery, and that wasn't the whole. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. This has always hit. Slavery has always been, okay, at the root of the American metamorphosis. Always been. That is never changed. Okay. And we're going to go in a little deeper today when we look at some of the. Hold on, because I want to make sure I lay this out. Because see, these people are crazy. They're literally thinking that they can erase our history by just removing stuff off of PDFs and websites. You know what I'm saying, brother? These people are crazy, man. I don't know what they think, but it ain't gonna happen. Okay, because we got the receipts, and okay, brother, you can take that down if you want.
Okay.
So now, one last thing I want to do before we really go in on what's going on today and why this metamorphosis that America is going through in this chaos, okay, is for a reason. If you would put up that picture of the fentanyl crisis in Philly, that one, yeah, I think, yeah, that's a picture from one of our other, from our solar.
Okay,
I don't
let me
know if you
find it.
got that separately. I sent you an email.
Okay,
Don't,
it was separate. Okay,
yeah, I sent it separately.
give me a second.
But I just, okay. I want to set a few things out first. Okay, here we go. So let's talk about, first of all, the lies about lazy black people on welfare, okay? So we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to set the record straight. Again, not only was this wealth created from our people working from can't see morning to can't see night, it was also established because they stole over close to 40 million acres of land from black farmers. So the colonies could not even be established in the beginning without first stealing the land. And in 1665, colonies passed laws to enslave blacks and justified it through the scripts. Okay, so that's why we say we always have 2 manifestations. The law of polarity, you have heat and you have cold on the same wavelength. In fact, cold is, there's no such thing as cold. Cold is just the absence of heat. So wherever you are not, sun people, then there is cold. There's an absence of heat. And nothing grows in the coldness. Okay, so let's get this straight, because somehow people think because they can change the laws of nature and write scripts and narratives that they can make you believe. Yeah, that's it. So that's the real manifestation of America right there. That's the real butterfly that came out. Okay, right there. And then we also looked at the colonies that conspired to put black people in chattel slavery. Now let's go into this right here. While we have this picture up here, we're going to talk about. Let's see first. I want to talk about this first, and then we're going to come back to this. All righty then. Okay, here we go. So we're still talking about the metamorphosis of America, right? And we're going to stay with the fact that it is a crimogenic society from its origin. Okay, how do we know that? How do we know it's a crimogenic society from its origin? Because the two first massive original crimes of America are still with us today. It was the kidnapping and forced labor of our brothers and sisters from the continent of Kibalon. And then it was the stolen land and broken, over 500 broken treaties and wars with black and brown people here on the copper colored people here on the Turtle Island. Okay, so this cannot be denied. One of the things that we go back to that was a part of this was, and we see this today, we have this same spirit today, okay, and their Cocoon experience, that you had the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. And this spirit is what is driving this Pan-American or Pan-European war. This spirit still exists in America, that they, so, you know, we are the focus, but they have always had this internal Pan-European war, okay, or Pan-American war, where you had the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. Okay, so the Federalists were pro-Constitution. And so you see what's happening today, where the Anti-Federalists oppose to the new Constitution. So this was always an original battle. The same reason why the Anti-Federalists were against the Constitution is the same reason it exists today, because they did not want black folks to have anything. And we have proof of, even when our folks got out, we're going to look at the historical acts of violence and crimes against humanity, our people. So this dynamic, they can say all this, these code words that they're using to hypnotize. They hypnotize white people before they do black people, okay? Talking about, what is it? Left, right, conservative, liberal. Those are your words. Those don't have nothing to do with black people, okay? Those don't have nothing to do with us, okay? We just want our human dignity. And wherever that can come from, which we deserve, then that's where we're looking to. So you can play all these little boy, little girl games you want, but this same Federalists, the Federalists wanted the people in major cities to support. And the Anti-Federalists appealed, like they do today, to rural poor whites who were against the Constitution. And the reason why the poor rural whites were against the Constitution is because that means that they would be on the same level playing field as blacks. And they knew that we had the ability to achieve things that they could not, even though we were heavily oppressed. And that same dynamic is the reason why you see all of the things that's happening in our society today. I don't care what they tell you. So initially, the Constitution was not accepted by each state. Mainly the Confederated States opposed it. And there was so much dissent that New York was not allowed to participate in the electoral process. And this is due to the fact that their Senate was ruled by Federalists. And the House of Representatives were Anti-Federalists. And they were very divided, like they are today. Okay. So, you know, again, this dynamic has always existed in the metamorphosis of America. They want to make it seem like this is, oh, now, you know, they're taking all our stuff and blah, blah, blah. No, this dynamic has always existed. It was just as long as if they were doing it to black folks, it wasn't a major issue. Let's be real about this. So one of the things that we see today in the streets of Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia, and this was in March of this year, is we see the consequences of a crimogenic society. And this attack is against their own people as well. And it shows you that if they really, with all the billions of dollars that America has, it shows you what they're really concerned with. So anytime someone can put their own people at risk like this, what do you think they feel? How do you think they feel about you? Okay, brother, you can remove that. Thank you. Those pictures are there. You can remove it. Thank you. Those pictures are very powerful because it actually shows you the reality of what we're dealing with. Okay. So let's go back to this crimogenic society and the hypocrisy of the real criminals, okay, that have abandoned America. Actually, if you go all the way back to Tricky Dick Nixon in 1971, when he sold out the U.S. to China, that's why they tell you all this crap about patriot. They're not patriotic in the sense that they mean. Because if they can get $1 from somebody in India or wherever they can get it from, you'll see how quick that patriotism goes out the door. So in May of 2022, May 21st, 2022, U.S. Department of Justice released these statistics. Okay, we're talking about 3 years ago. The majority of white-collar crime offenders are white males. Specifically, around 80% of white-collar criminals are men. And 75% of the offenders in white-collar crimes are white. U.S. Department of Justice, May 21st, 2022. So again, you can paint this lie about our people being criminals. Okay, but this is from the U.S. Department of Justice, not Neil Frazier. Yet, white-collar crimes, this is the real crime, okay, make up only 3% of federal prosecutions. I'm going to say that again because, again, they have always painted this picture of our people, you know, because this is the main reason they want to hide real history. But yet, so specifically, 80% of white-collar criminals are men, or white males, and 75% of the offenders in white-collar crimes are whites, U.S. Department of Justice. Yet white-collar crimes make up only 3% of federal prosecution. Okay, so you can march in the street all you want, but until you march against this type of injustice, it's not going to move the creatrix not one ounce. Okay, or inch, I should say. White-collar crime refers to a range of fraud committed by business and government professionals, which you see today. And very few of them ever get prosecuted, 3%. Prosecutions decreased 53% from 2011 to 2021 for white-collar crimes. And the annual losses as of 2021 between, wow, that is insane. 426 billion to 1.7 trillion. And it is estimated that 90% of white collar crimes go unreported. 50% of embezzlers are managers. Fraud is the most common form of white collar crime, 63%. The average prison sentence for white collar crimes such as fraud is only, get this, 27 months, 2 years and 3 months. And certain demographics of white collar criminals need a certain status or job type to know how to commit these crimes. So in other words, you and I, we can't commit these type of crimes because the minute you try to do something pertaining to this embezzlement or anything like that, trust and believe, you're not going to get away with that. So let's look at now we were talking about earlier how we know in the history of America, this is one of the cruelest things that have ever been done to humanity. The very people that built everything you have, that built the wealth for you, yeah, we're going to keep saying it. Here once they got their constitutional freedom in 1865, you notice I said constitutional freedom because they didn't get their real freedom. Our people who have toiled in that sun for centuries for you. That's why you can't preach no scripts to me until you have repented of this. You had the nerve to burn up black churches, burn down and kill our people like dogs in the street, to shoot in churches. But yet you won't say black folks are violent? Let's look at this. Historical acts of violence and crimes against humanity. And this is why this phase of this metamorphosis that America is in is going to yield a lot of things that you may not be prepared for, but nonetheless, just from the way that nature operates, it's just natural karma, okay? And nobody can do anything about it, by the way. So we have the Atlanta Race Massacre in 1906, where blacks established their own businesses. And then there was a lie that rape of 4 white women caused this race riot. And they burnt down black businesses, and so they say 25 blacks were killed. But come on, man, we know much more than that was killed. And we look at Rosewood, a thriving black community in Florida, 1923, January 4th, burned to the ground by whites. Lasted several days, wild looting, 27 people killed. We know now there's well over 250 people. There was a mass grave that was found with other black people in it that was not even counted. Springfield Race Massacre, 1908. August 14th through 15th, a white mob did not want 2 black men to have a fair trial. Thousands gathered, killing blacks, burning down homes, churches, businesses, $150,000 in destruction, 8 dead, 2 lynched. The Slocum Massacre, Texas, 1910, the KKK killed black farmers, made up a lie that blacks were planning a riot. Many of them were shot down in cold blood like dogs in the street, and between 40 and 200 black people were murdered. East St. Louis, Illinois Massacre, 1917. Jealous whites killed 150 black people, 600 homes were destroyed, $400,000 in property damage, children and adults set on fire and shot down in the street. So, all right, so let's look at, as we continue to look at this Cocoon experience and the metamorphosis of America, let's look at something very, very important, okay? Now, yeah, we went through that, yeah. So let's talk about what's happening now, okay? Let's talk about what's happening right now. Let's look at the statistics for what we see has happened throughout the world to bring us to this point, okay? So we know that they use hyperinflation in central banks to bring about this destabilization of these countries, to force these people to come here. This was the plan, to set them up against black people. And then when that didn't work out, and now, you know, they want to send them all back. So, but the inflation in Argentina and Venezuela was 249%, where a loaf of bread costs $21. So in 5% is considered a high inflation rate. So when in America, so when black folks, when Americans see inflation going over 3%, they're ready to get out here and say, hey, what's going on? Or in Venezuela, because of hyperinflation and U.S. corporations raking all the minerals and whatever else they do out of their lands, caused this. The other thing was the IMF gave Venezuela $44 billion. Okay. And the US gave them $16 billion. Okay. So the average inflation rate was 39% in Central America. And the current US inflation rate is only 3.14%. Now, this was done again because what they wanted to do is they wanted to create a clash of cultures. Okay. This is done because of the prison industrial complex, which is one of their primary ways of not only incarcerating black and brown men en masse, but also to have a free labor force, like they're doing now in some states. Okay. The other thing is the manufacturing of homelessness, and what we saw with fentanyl and the coming food crisis. And we talked about, the skin game that we play. We know how they play that game. But let's look at another aspect of this, which is extremely important because this is what's going on with them today, and why they have this. I don't know where they get this from, that black people should be out in the streets fighting for them, when they have created this situation by remaining silent when they knew what was going on. Okay. Okay, so let's look at the hypocrisy of criminals who created a criminal society and then label its constituents as criminals. We know that there's trafficking of children worldwide. Okay. And we know that black people do not have the ability to do this. Okay. But the real criminals, they do. There's a set of laws that are separate and unequal. We know this from the Kerner report. And there's a system of injustice and profiling. And then the power structure was designed for you to fail. And the media constantly weaponizes itself against you through the assassination of Black people's character and image, which is a false construct. And then importing drugs, guns, and crime into the Black community because of a war on Black youth. All right. Now, as we look further into this metamorphosis, the other thing that we see with this metamorphosis of America, before I go into the last part of this, I want to explain something. Okay. I want to explain something to our people because, you know, I'm tired of fighting our people over religion. Okay. This is where we're still stuck in the cocoon. Okay. When you're a butterfly spiritually. Okay, so this is what you don't know. KRST, okay, is a concept that originated in the Medu Neter that the people who plagiarized and created a religion from copied this from. Okay. Now, this term meant to our people because this is another problem our people have when we talk about truth. We saw ourselves, each one of us, as anointed ones because we were kissed by the sun. Okay. There was no one anointed one. Okay. We saw ourselves as the anointed ones. There were chosen ones amongst the anointed people. And under the concept of KRST, there were chosen people. Okay. And this is why they structured the church based on having, bishops, preachers, pastors, what are the other people they call them? Catholic, cardinals, popes. This is why because in the concept of KRST or Christ, that was, linguistically and through the etymology of words changed into that. Okay, I'm not here to argue with nobody. I know this as a fact, so I'm not here to argue with anybody on this point. The point I'm trying to make to you is that you have got to start interpreting things based on who you are and not what other people have taught you who you are. Okay? And stop getting angry at us who are trying to tell you the truth. Nobody cares about you can worship a rock if you want to. I don't care. The problem I'm having is we're teaching our children the same thing. And it is critical because these Luciferians have come full court press on us, and you're still acting as if, this is a fact, the way that they have you thinking. Okay, so KRST, it was a title, okay? It's not a person. And there was no religion until the 7th century, okay? And based on Gerald Massey's The Natural Genesis, Volume 2, page 357 to 59, and the Messiah etymology, the Messiah anointed Christ from KRST, which the European Egyptologists, okay, and we know this from Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, that they took this and they turned it around. Okay. Also, the Book of the Beginnings, Egypt, the Light of the World. And this is why white scholars hate Gerald Massey to this day, but cannot dispute his work. Okay. So we're not playing with these people anymore. We know what's going on, and we know that unless we fight against you, you're going to try to snowball. Mainly our children, you don't care because you got our adults, man, I don't even want to talk about that. But they can do whatever they want. Okay. And ain't nobody talking about you trying to, feel like you're superior or better than anybody. We're talking about now that your pineal gland is open for you to look at truth. Okay. You can worship whoever, you can worship an ant if you want to. Okay. And so to further shed light on this, for our people to see this, okay, that the most effective thing that they have done is to make you think that religion and politics are separate when it's not, okay? And I'm going to show you this so you'll know. Now, is it just a coincidence that the two most Christian cultures in America, Blacks and Latinos, are at the bottom of the economic ladder? I'm going to read that again. And you marinate on this. Is it a coincidence that the most Christian cultures in America, Blacks and Latinos, are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, while at the same time, the two cultures at the top of America's ethnic, economic, social structure are overwhelmingly non-Christian, which is the Asians and East Indians? I'm going to read that again. Because see, people get things twisted. They get so angry at the truth, they got you just like them. When the truth is slapping you in the face, you better stop getting angry at other Black people and realize that we have no friends. You better stop that. That don't mean you have to kumbaya with everybody. Or, all Black people, all skin folk. It's not kinfolk. That's the truth. We know that. But the ones that are, you need to embrace them. Okay, and stop getting on here trying to attack people and take out, like Lance, one of your videos, revenge on people. Because all that means is somebody have you in a goddamn caterpillar state. That's all that means when you're a butterfly. Now, let's look at a couple of the important scripts that they use to subdue the etheric mind and spirit of our people, because they know we're spiritual people. And believe me, they have worked sorcery on our people. You can believe whatever you want. That is a fact. And you know something? Last night, Lance, you remember the movie Let's Do It Again? With Bill Cosby and what's his name, Sidney Poitier.
Oh, those good old, yeah.
Yeah, and a fine ass Denise Nicholas. Man, I watched it last night, and what's his name? Who was in it? John Amos. He played like a big time gangster in New Orleans.
Right.
And Jimmy Walker, JJ, played this boxer.
Right.
That, you could blow at him and he'll fall down. So he would get knocked down in ring when he was practicing in the ring or sparring, right? And he was going up against the champ. And so, long story short, Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby, they was hustlers. So Sidney Poitier, I guess because of his heritage or wherever he's from, he knew how to hypnotize people, right? And so he hypnotized Jimmy Walker, and he knocked out the champ, right?
Oh, wow.
He hypnotized him to believe he was Superman. So in the end, they ran an okie doke, because right before Jimmy Walker was supposed to fight again, they hypnotized him, and then they unhypnotized him. to run an okie doke on the two competing, people that was running the numbers. It was just, but it made me think about, I know some of the things they use to hypnotize our people, but it just gave me a picture of how this is done. So here's some of the scripts that they use against our people to pretty much kind of paralyze our people. But we also know that these scripts, when we look at them the right way, also tell us a true story about what we're dealing with and who we're dealing with. You shall know them by their fruits, which is a natural law, because there are no two trees. If you plant an apple tree, that's all you're going to get off that tree. You're not going to get oranges, right? So when somebody puts spin on something, that don't mean that changes the original thing that happened. You'll know them by their fruits. We know them by their fruits, but we act like these are not the fruit. Oh, those are not the fruits that they say they're supposed to manifest. That's what they tell you. But yet we are looking at the fruits of their manifestation. So yeah, it has to be some kind of okie doke. You've witnessed 500 years of physical, psychological, and spiritual contradictions, right? Yeah, you've seen these contradictions. One of the major contradictions that you've seen is the different phases of this cocoon experience and metamorphosis in America that we've gone through. We can clearly, when we go back in history, see this, and we can see how they've also taken the scripts and used them against to bamboozle our people. Love your neighbor as yourself, which is a contradiction of divine law, because the law of oneness actually means that you and your neighbor are one. So here again, you see there's a separation of you without your knowledge. Love your neighbor. In America, we don't love our neighbors. We compete against our neighbors. That's why that's a low vibratory interpretation that they have given you. No, we are all connected to the same source, the cosmic consciousness, or you can call it the Akashic records or Akashic records. But they know, because they have recently gone to and seen the quanta, that all things are connected at that level. So as they find out spiritual things, then they're looking at you and they're frightened because they know that you are the actual representation of this great power. Okay. And the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. Okay. Which it is. The kingdom of what you call heaven is inside of you. Okay. So I wanted to make sure I covered a couple other things, brother, before we conclude here.
Take your time.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we know. Okay, so here's what's going on right now, okay? Here's what's going on right now. So before we talk about what's going on right now, before we conclude, let's take a quick look of history again, so we can see that this has been, so this is why they keep going back to this era. Okay, this is why they keep going back to this era right here, is because this is where, when we talked about the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, this is where their power originates. Okay, here we go. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. So there are two things in the history of America and the Cocoon experience of America that points directly, okay, to how we ended up in the condition we're in this country, what led up to it, and why it's important to look at this, because this is in essence why we segregated and why we knew that we had to change our condition for the future of other generations coming after us. And I'm going to give two of the most glaring examples of this. This is another thing they want to bury in the history books. So first, we're going to talk about the Great Migration of Black people and why it was necessary for this to happen, because this is going to shed light on what's going on today, okay? But the reason why our people traveled great distances, thousands of miles, which also was the Trail of Tears as well, that Southern Blacks moved north out of desperation. And Northern newspapers actually enticed them with stories of success. If you come here, instead of making 5 cents an hour, you can make 75 cents an hour. You see what I'm saying? So this was the reality of our people. So no other people can claim this, what was done to our people. So let's stop with this. You know, I'm hearing people trying to compare. There is no other experience in the Americas that can compare to the experience of Black people in the Americas. There is no other experience. I've done research for 42 years. There is no other experience. They move for better job opportunities and quality of life, and to escape terrorism, which was racial violence from white gangs, to try to keep our people in the condition they were in, because the economic foundation of the South was Black folks. 90% of all Black people lived in the South between 1910 and 1940. Well, by 1940, 1.5 million Blacks left the South. And the major migrations that Black people between 1910 and 1940, and 1940 and 1970. And by 1970, 52% had left the South for northern cities like Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and westward to Oakland and LA. Okay. The other reason is that the 13th Amendment and sharecropping and economic enslavement operated on a system of credit, housing, food, low wages, and it kept Blacks in perpetual debt to plantation landowners that hired them. And at the beginning of the prison industrial complex, Blacks could be jailed for not being able to pay for the necessities that they were credited. And that food, shelter, clothing, tools to work with, if they could not pay, they could be jailed or leased out to other slave owners. And there were several natural causes why the crops were not harvested that year, which were unpredictable weather, which caused low yield of the crops. But Blacks were still held accountable. Okay. They were still held accountable. And real quickly, the Trail of Tears, where we had over 500 documented broken treaties. Okay. People put and barbed wire plantations, giving alcohol and casinos to further destroy themselves. But they face the same, these copper colored people face the same threat that our forefathers face. Okay. And, I'll be the first to say that many of our people, okay, who we know, the black tribes that were here, were also classified as Indians. And they did that through the one drop rule. So we don't have to be arguing about who's this or who's that. We just embrace all of our people in the diaspora wherever they are. And these people that are being paid to divide our people, you're going to have to answer to this one day. I don't know who you are, and frankly, I don't care who you are. But the reason why, if you can't see that they're dividing our people, is this is where your strength lies, or our strength lies. We can clearly see that when we come together and target something. No pun intended. But from 1835 to 1845, these 5 tribes, we know that they changed the names of these tribes, but we'll use the names that they use in the history books. They warred with the Europeans. The Seminoles were the only ones that were able to resist removal, okay, as they fiercely defended their territory. But the Muskegee, the Chickasaw, the Pontotoc Creek, the Cherokee, okay, and those 4 nations mainly were the ones that actually experienced similar issues that black folks, they also went through this as well. And again, our people, we all live together as one, no matter how they lied in the history books. So when you see, when you look at the old photos, you see our people, who they call Indians, marching on these damn trails and living in Oklahoma and these other places. So you go figure. But yeah, so the same thing happened to them. And we're going to talk about today, what's going on today, when we wrap this up. So what's going on today is, I'm going to make sure I get the right information. So what's going on today is they are coming face to face with the history of their Cocoon experience. And it's an ugly history. I'd be the first one to say that it's not a history I would be proud of. But at the same time, nonetheless, anytime you deal with any type of person that's dealing with healing, the first thing that they tell you, okay, the first thing that they tell you is that you have to come face to face with the source of that pain. And when you don't do, to the extent that you don't do that, then you're not really dealing with the real problem. All you're doing is putting a Band-Aid, and this is what America has always done. Okay, they're putting a Band-Aid on the real problem. But we're going to look at this squarely in the face to see why they have the situation that they have today. Okay, you see me flipping through my notes real quick because I want to make sure that I get the exact point that I want to make about this that's happening today to our people, and why, a lot of times when people say that history repeats itself, that's true. That is absolutely true. So, so when we look at the the two countries that actually, oh yeah, thank you, Creatrix. I wanted to bring the person that's in charge of the Treasury of the Department of the United States now into this to show the connection today to what transpired with our people way back then. Okay, when they first came across our people, okay, and put them in the condition that they put them in. Because right now, all of the different countries are getting ready to cut the dollar off as their primary currency of their particular country. And this is something that people are not looking at right now, but this is going to have a major impact on us. Okay, so let's talk about why that's going to have a major impact on us and what happened when the original world currencies came into play and how they came into the play and how this is all a part of the Cocoon experience, okay, of Europeans in America when you connect them to the source by which they were put into motion. Okay, so since 1450, there's only been 6 world reserve currencies during this period. First, it was the Portugal, in 1450 to 1530, which was called the Age of Exploration. It should have been called the Age of Exploitation. This is where originally the Europeans from Portugal, 1450 to 1530, they classified it as the Age of Exploration. Then you had Spain from 1530 to 1640. Okay. During this time when the conquistadors came here. Okay, and it was the Iberian Union with Portugal, and they also used the Spanish silver. Okay, so we know this was during a time where they colonized a lot of the Caribbean, Brazil, South America, and they were making their way to Central America. And then we had the Netherlands from 1640 to 1720, which the head of the Treasury of the United States that has fired almost 500,000 people, that you guys are out there with the protests on the 5th. We're going to tie this into that. Because see, when they disrupt your genetic memory bank, which is the primary root goal of Project 2025, and them destroying the Department of Education and taking out all of your history from these different websites. This is the reason why. Because the Netherlands in 1640 to 1720, this is why the same people who are blacker than you and I turn their noses up to us, because the Dutch East Indian Company that produced spices for the Europeans, they were also in bed with the Dutch in the Netherlands. And that's how they were able to get property in Africa, as well as all over the diaspora. So we got to be aware of this history. This is something they know. That's why when it really comes down to it, it's hard for these other cultures, because now they have been in bed with these Luciferians their whole existence. And so when they see you and they have to confront during this metamorphosis, now they have to confront this truth. Okay. Then it was France in 1720 to 1815, which massive debts from war. Okay, and what is his name? Champollion, who tried to decipher along with Thomas Young, the Medu-Neter, in which they came up with which I do agree with Dr. Walter Williams. They never decipher the medu because they didn't have the spiritual aspect and open pineal gland to be able to decipher the medu, but they came up with demotic and then hieroglyphics, which they have fooled you, is the base of this information or concepts. And then you had the Bretton Woods Agreement. And so that was the last time until the world currency in 1921, the United States. Well, in 1911, it changed. The United States, I'm sorry, in 1971, when Tricky Dick, I was talking about earlier, sold out the United States. But in 1921, well, in 1944, the official currency under the Bretton Woods Agreement, the U.S. had all the gold at that time. That's why it's so crazy that they're saying now that all the gold is missing. But the apartheid government had most of the world's gold, the Krugerrand. All right. The world currency that is held in significant quantities by governments. Okay, so that means the US dollar is held in significant quantities, and we depend on that. And that's why I was telling you that what's happening today is so important, because when you set up tariffs against the very people, okay, that are doing, that are manufacturing and exporting 95% of our goods, you're setting up a situation where the American economy is going to crash. And I don't know where people get this stuff about somebody being such a good business person, but if you've taken business 101, you can see this, okay? And this is deliberate. There is something else going on that we don't know, okay? Yeah, so the trade deficit, the U.S. has the largest trade deficit in the world because we import more than we export, okay? I don't know what it is now. I know it's trillions of dollars. They always lie and talk about that. But as we wind down here, we want to show the connection between what I just read to you with these different European countries that establish corporations by using black labor, free labor, and how that ties in today with the wealth that they have, and why this metamorphosis is not going to allow them to come out. Because what's happening is, again, metamorphosis is the transformation or the change of a living organism, these people, okay, from one state of existence to another, either by natural or supernatural means. So if you're not going to follow the natural processes, then there is a supernatural power that's going to cause you to do this, okay, which you're seeing now. And as Lance said, whether that supernatural power is good or bad, it manifests. Right now, we see a butterfly that's tearing down everything. The real manifestation is supposed to be, so the butterfly in nature represents joy, truth, prosperity, abundance, which there's natural abundance on the planet, but the Luciferians have taken all the natural minerals, and that's their go-to game plan, is to take minerals from other countries, because that's the real wealth, not the fiat they got you throwing around in the air. But let's look at this real quickly so we can tie this into today and what we've been talking about with what's going on today, okay? And how we saw that the Netherlands, okay, played a major part in the manifestation and the metamorphosis of America. and so did Portugal. The Dutch invaded Brazil, okay, which is the Netherlands, the Dutch, either or, which was ordered by the Dutch West Indian Company during the 17th century. Okay, the invasions were due to the desire to control the sugar supply and slave sources. The Dutch, which are the modern day Boers or Afrikaners, whatever you want to call them, in which the person in charge of the U.S. Treasury, the reason why they're cutting your throat, is the Dutch also settled in the Hudson River Valley of North America, and Lance, in your home state, New York, and New Amsterdam in 1624. Okay. They were the first colonizers of South Africa. And the Boers, as I just said, are the descendants of the Dutch. Only 7.3 of whites, the South Afrikaners, are responsible for killing 60 million Black Africans. Millions were slaughtered and many were abducted to be used as slaves in America and Europe. And see, that's another reason if you're bringing 70,000 of people who grew up under, that's why I tell Black folks, we have got to unite. Whatever unite is to you, you don't see this tsunami plan coming at you. Okay? There's a tsunami aimed at our people. This is our last stand. We have what it takes to stand up against it, okay? But you have got to know that this is directed against you. It always has been. Look, all of these countries that I named, their descendants are still wealthy because of you. They know this. Do you think they're just going to give this up? No, they're not. You're going to have to fight them for it like you're doing now. Not marching in the street or protesting about anything. Your power is in your purse. That is your real power. Okay, let's look at one other country that had a devastating impact on the position of Black people and brown people in the Americas. And see, this is the reason why they had to trick brown people, is because they could not have pulled this off if they were not able to do that. Okay, so the Portuguese tortured, killed, and dumped thousands of prisoners in mass graves. They dropped napalm on villages and torched huts with cigarette lighters. This was done in Africa in the 19th century. Okay, March 9th, 2008. Brazil, in sugar plantations, the life expectancy was less than 7 years after they were imported there. 4 million Africans were imported to Brazil during the slave trade. Imagine 7 years. Imagine the brutality that have to exist for your life expectancy to be over 7 years once you get to a plantation. The Netherlands and Dutch, according to a report by Anadolu Agency, the Dutch began to colonize Africa's natural and human resources in Ghana and Senegal in the 16th century, on the Ivory Coast, and South Africa in the 17th century, and Namibia in the 19th century. The Dutch used South Africa as a hub for their slave trade in the 17th century. The Dutch, the French, the English, and German settlers began arriving in South Africa, in which they killed 2.8 million additional Africans in Brazil. In World War I and World War II, in the Pan-European wars, there were 20 million killed in World War I, which was an imperialistic and capitalistic war. And then an astonishing 75 million people were killed in World War II in the Pan-European wars. And also in the religious wars, the Crusades and the Inquisitions, 6 million and 2 million were also killed. And that is going to be the wrap up on the presentation today, my brother. All righty then. You there, brother? Brother Lance, you there?
Yes, I am, brother. It's just a wait for a second.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up the presentation. And we are going to keep on fighting, brother. Keep on, holding on to the belts.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
They're going to come at our people in a lot of twisted ways moving forward. Because, see, our people are not responding in the limited ways in which they used to. And they can no longer keep us in this condition. So they're looking for new ways to do this. And I know that I see now I have more faith in our people being able to deal with this. A few years ago, I was a little concerned because we were still, reacting from an emotional type of situation. Whereas now we're thinking things through. And we're saying, okay, you're not going to okie doke us with this anymore. So yeah, my brother, I got it. Yes. I gotta get up out of here. But as always, man, I enjoy being with you on Mondays. And
man, this went too fast. But anyway,
yeah, it went by fast, huh? Dang. But we're gonna keep dealing with truth, brother, and you keep up the great work that you're doing. And I'll talk to you. I have a few things to tell you. I'll talk to you via, definitely. You know how we communicate.
Yeah. We have to, because there's so much good stuff going on, and some progress coming in directions of whatever. Yeah. I'm just very happy. I'm very happy right now.
That's a good thing.
That's right.
Well, take care, my brother, and I will talk to you again soon.
Yes, thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Much love. All right. We're going to come back in a little while. We got a few things to do. I want to do a live this evening also. I'm putting it together, and we're back on a roll. And I want to thank everybody for attending and being here tonight. It's all love. That's what it's all about. And we're just going to keep on going all day, every day. That's what we do. All right. So give me not a few, it'll be a little while. But there's a few things I want to say, and I want to have fun again. I want to keep it comical, informative, and something to listen to, Anyway, here we go. Much love. Oh, by the way, if you haven't hit that link in the chat room on top, make sure to hit that link, lancecurvex.com, and put your email address in there. You'll find out if you don't know. It's all good. Take care.